Good morning, everybody. I say good morning. It is 12:10. Haven't spoken yet today, so hello. My name is Debbie if you haven't been here before. Nice to see you. Bit of a different style for this book review today, because I finished this book a few days ago actually. It was while I was working. I didn't have a day off for a bit, so this is my day off after 4 days on. I finished the audiobook of When the Crawdads Sing while on one of my works that I do on my lunch breaks. And then, because it is winter, I haven't had the lighting to talk about that book yet, but I know it's also been adapted into a film, and so I was like, oh, it would be really interesting to read the book and then watch the film, but would it be a bit more interesting if I told my thoughts about the book before I went into a full-on comparison? So, I will say, I really enjoyed When the Crawdads Sing. Yes, I know about the issues with the author, that's neither here nor there. I wanted to set that aside and just create my own opinions about the book and the story. And I actually enjoyed it. Because it's told in two timelines, I actually preferred the growing up aspect of it, and it wasn't until towards the end that I got more into the murder mystery, which is weird because as somebody who really enjoys a murder mystery, I was not really fazed by the murder mystery element that was introduced right at the beginning. I think it had to do with the fact that we hadn't been given anything about that character. We kept getting so much of the interruptions of Kaya's narrative, but you didn't know anything about the person who had died. I'll read the blurb to you, so you've got an idea of what I'm talking about, because basically you're following a young girl in America. You're watching her grow up, and it's interspersed, I can't even say the word, interspersed with what is happening in the present, not present for now, but present for then, where somebody has died, and they're trying to figure out who did it, and so you're trying to figure out like how these stories overlap and everything. So, yeah. For years, rumours of the Marsh Girl have haunted Barkley Cove, a quiet town on the North Carolina coast. So in late 1969, when handsome Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kaya Clark, the so-called Marsh Girl. But Kaya is not what they say. Sensitive and intelligent, she has survived for years alone in the marsh that she calls home, finding friends in the gulls and lessons in the sand. Then the time comes when she yearns to be touched and loved. When two young men from town become intrigued by her wild beauty, Kaya opens herself to a new life until the unthinkable happens. So, yeah, as you can tell, my hair is still wet. I'm trying to decide if I want to plait it or if I want to hairdry it, and to be honest, I'm not sure I have the energy to hairdry it, so I might just plait it and then just let it dry like that. So, yeah, ultimately, I preferred the story of watching Kaya grow up over the murder mystery, and it wasn't until later in the book, when you're more caught up with what's going on, that I actually started to become a bit more interested in it. And that's one thing that I'm interested in, how the movie does it, because I haven't looked into like how the movie is done at all, of whether they're still going to use the flashback narrative which was done in the book, or if they're literally just going to tell the story from start to finish. So yeah, I'm hoping to watch that film today. So yeah, thoughts on the book as of right now. I enjoyed the book. I really enjoyed reading Kaya's story and seeing how she gets through adversity. She actually talks about like the first day of school, where it's just like, I'm never going back there because I'm just being treated as the Marsh Girl. Yeah, I think it's also because Kaya's abandoned by pretty much everybody. Her mother leaves, her siblings leave, her father leaves, and to the point where she is just left by herself. And you find out more and more about her family life and the reasons why her mother left as the book goes on. So, yeah, well, you know, there's trigger warnings for abusive relationships. There's an attempted rape in there as well. Do your own research and try to figure out what you can handle. But yeah, so I just found it quite a powerful book about this young girl going through adversity, and the fact that she is just, you know, the community calls her Marsh Girl because they can't be bothered to lend a hand to somebody who's in need when her family's completely abandoned her. It's quite a heartbreaking story when you look at it from that point of view. But then, as it says in the blurb, there's some boys from town that actually bothered to talk to her and one of them, Tate, teaches her to read and write, which kind of powers through Kaya's story, but she still remains fiercely independent, and she doesn't really want to rely on other people, but she does make friends with people. She makes friends with the local shop owner and his wife, and they're there through a few of her milestones as she tries to get through like puberty and things, but she doesn't really know what's happening to herself in the marsh where she grows up. She goes and like fishes and hunts for mussels and things, and she sells her wares essentially to get like gas for a boat and money to like actually live, but a lot of the time she is just living with the land essentially. And yeah, it's just a really, really powerful book about community and the lack thereof. I've had a while to think about this book as well, and I think I'm still thinking about it, but yeah, ultimately I'm looking forward to seeing how the movie does it, because as I said at the beginning, because you're thrown straight in with that murder mystery with absolutely no context, sometimes that can work, especially in the sense of the more traditional murder mysteries, but usually you've got somebody else to follow that investigation through. But this book doesn't really have that. When I say that, I mean things like when you think of like things like Miss Marple, Poirot and stuff, like you might have like a complete random person die on you, but then you're following that investigation through like a detective or somebody who wants to know what happened. That's not how this book is set up. You'll find out that somebody is dead, you've got people thinking it's the Marsh Girl, and then you introduce the Marsh Girl and you watch her grow up. So you don't have any context for the death or what that relationship is or anything. And you don't actually meet Chase, the young man who dies, until more than halfway into the book. So you really don't have any context for the guy who dies. And so yeah, it was a weird thing for something that is basically a murder mystery story to have somebody who loves a good murder mystery but really struggled to get with that part of the narrative. As I said, I just preferred watching Kaya grow up and seeing her living with the land and growing up in the marsh completely by herself and seeing her fend for herself. I was more interested in that part of the story until we finally got to the present, which is the late 60s, when Chase is found dead and the whole community turns on her, which didn't take much because they already did not consider her a part of the community. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what my thoughts are after the film, and yeah.
Editing Deb's just popping on to clarify that I think I would have been more interested in the murder mystery aspect of the book if the court case had been side by side with Kaya's growing up. Because you don't meet Chase until over halfway into the book, I had no reason to be interested in Chase's death.
Stick around. I've got a few things to do today. So I think I might just plait my hair. I really cannot be bothered to dry it with a blow dryer. I've got at least one video that I want to edit today because it's like a half-hour long video, and I want to see if I can get that down a little bit. Not the longest video I've edited, but still fairly long. So I can get at least one video edited today. That'd be nice. And then I also have finished a couple of books as well, including this one. So I finished an audiobook in bed this morning while I was waiting for the cat to move. As any cat owner knows, respectable cat owner knows, if the cat has chosen you, you are the chosen one, and you're not allowed to move. So with this being my day off, I just thought I'd just stay in bed. So I was reading books, I was watching YouTube videos, I watched a bit on Disney Plus, and listened to the end of the audiobook of Handmaid's Tale, which is a book that is very up there for me. I read it years ago. I think it's probably one of my earliest videos on here was me talking about The Handmaid's Tale, and seeing that the audiobook was narrated by a few of the cast members of the show, I just thought, oh, that would be an interesting reread, essentially, to listen to the audiobook. So yeah, finished that one this morning. And then I've also got a couple of other books that I've finished, including When He Was Wicked by Julia Quinn. So we've got this one, When He Was Wicked, and the Handmaid's Tale audiobook that I want to talk about at some point. So yeah, so I'm going to go have some brunch because it's coming up to 12:30 and I haven't eaten anything yet. So I'm thinking a bit of poached egg on toast might be the way to go. Yeah, I feel like it's a little bit more informal because I'm standing as opposed to sitting in my usual spot. So yeah, and I also, if possible, I want to wash my makeup brushes today. I want to clean them because they're looking a bit yeah. So yeah, got a few things. Editing, film a couple of videos, and watch Where The Crawdads Sing, and possibly do a couple of episodes of Station 19. I'm on season 5 at the moment, and I watched an episode while I was getting ready for work yesterday, and it ended on a proper cliffhanger, and it was just like, I need to know what happens. So let's go a cup of tea and some brunch, shall we? And then maybe I'll see you later once I've watched When The Crawdads Sing. See you later. Alright, so I've had a cup of tea, I've had my brunch. I did avocado and poached egg on toast, it was very tasty. And I've started the film, and it's starting exactly the same way the book does, which is with Chase found dead. So we've answered that question, now let's just see what I think of the rest of the film. Here we go, it started. So this is an angle that's not used very often, mainly because of the mirror. So I am about half an hour into the film, and I have also done a couple of my Theatre Thursday videos. I say that loosely because it's just taking pictures of the programmes, so it's allowed me to take pictures of those and watch the film at the same time. I find it interesting because the court case in the book doesn't happen until like the second half of the book, whereas this is combining the court case with the flashbacks. So whereas the book feels like essentially 3 parts, because the book is, you start off by finding out that Chase is dead, then you go back and learn everything about Kaya, and then the last quarter of the book is the court case. So this brings the court case to the front while also switching between the murder mystery and Kaya's upbringing. So yeah, it's definitely a good way to kind of condense the story a bit, and Kaya's upbringing and her being left alone, and the initial finding of Chase's body, and a little bit of the community's response, but it is mainly Kaya growing up. So yeah, I find it quite clever that they're pretty much interspersing the court case with the upbringing, whereas obviously in the book the court case doesn't come until like the last quarter of the book. So yeah, I feel like I just said that in like 3 different ways. I'm watching it and just importing the photos that I took of the programmes, but yeah, good start, half an hour in. So I am at 37 minutes exactly, and we've met Tate. Considering the fact that the film is like pretty much bang on 2 hours, well it says 2 hours, 5 minutes and 25 seconds, it definitely feels like a slightly, well, as it would feel a quicker pace than the book, because I think we probably met Tate about halfway through the book, possibly. We'd spent a lot of time in the book focusing on Kaya's upbringing, which has obviously been condensed quite a lot for the film. It's been very quick to establish that Kaya was left on her own and abandoned by the rest of her family, and the fact that the community do not trust her as far as they could throw her. But yeah, I feel like so far the issues that I had with the book have been fixed by the film, which is nice. So far it does feel very, very faithful. So I just finished the film. It's an emotional ending, this one. It was gut-wrenching when I read it, and it was gut-wrenching to watch as well. And I'm glad that they didn't change anything. Because I've seen a few adaptations where it's just like, why did you even bother to try and adapt it if you were just going to ignore so much or change so much? And this one is a really faithful adaptation of the book, and I respect that. I think I prefer the film to the book. So I did enjoy listening to the book, but as I said before, when I was reading it I felt like the murder mystery got in the way until you finally came to the courtroom scenes, at which point I felt a lot more invested because you've gotten to know Kaya so much over the course of the book. The way it's been adapted has obviously streamlined it, because obviously you've got, in a sense, 2 hours to portray a book that was, how long was the audiobook? It's 12 hours and 13 minutes. So there is a lot to compress there, really. It's in crime, thriller, mystery, historical fiction, literary fiction, but I feel like because it's set in North Carolina, and because it is late 60s, early 70s, because I mean it says it's late 1969 when Chase is found dead, so it makes me think that because of the time across it, that the main events take place in like the early 70s, and 1970 exactly, pretty much. But I feel like because it's North Carolina, it kind of puts it into a bit of a time capsule, because North Carolina and kind of like those southern American states, it almost feels modern. It's like modern but not at the same time. That's why I say it's kind of trapped in the time capsule a little bit, because it feels like it could be any time. I think it has to do with the court case as well. The fact that the book sets you up to be on Kaya's side all the way through, which is why the end of the book and the film comes as a bit of a surprise and a shock. But at the same time also, I know I myself didn't really blame Kaya for how it ends, when you kind of find out the truth, essentially. And it's obvious from the way that Tate reacts to what he finds out, that he doesn't judge her either. It's hard to talk about this without spoiling the end, which I'm sure quite a few people probably do know at this point, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody who doesn't and wants to read the book or watch the film. Because in the book, it's concentrating on really you getting to know Kaya and seeing how gentle she is, but then also realising the fighter that she becomes, essentially. Because when you look at her relationship with Tate versus with Chase, Tate obviously comes across as like the nice guy. He's the one that teaches her to read. He's the one who teaches her to write, which leads on to Kaya's storyline of actually writing a book from her knowledge of living in the marshlands and hunting and everything that she has learned over the years, because she's lived it. And when Chase comes in, he is like the polar opposite of Tate. Even in the book, I wasn't the biggest fan of Chase, and that was just like, oh, I felt like I kind of understand where it was going. You see a relationship between Kaya and Chase that's kind of mirroring what happened with her parents, something that Kaya has to learn as she gets older in the book as well, because at first she doesn't understand why her mum left, and then her siblings leave, obviously, and obviously she has her own experiences with her father, but in the book it's a letter that helps her to understand what really happened between her parents. And as she gets older, Kaya then realises that she never wants to be put in the same position her mother was. And so when that relationship with Chase becomes so obviously not something that Kaya wants to continue with, as I will give a little bit of a trigger warning for attempted rape as well as the familial abuse between her parents, which is why obviously Kaya doesn't want to repeat history there. Kaya, she does actually stand up to Chase, and people witness her standing up to Chase, which is why she's put into the firing line when Chase dies. And I'll admit, when I read the end of the book, it was just like, oh my goodness. And I was just like, I don't blame her, because I didn't like Chase either, and he's portrayed as kind of like that rich white boy who doesn't care about anybody except himself. And he's there going like, oh, I need you, Kaya, even though you later find out he's been stringing her along the whole time. And the things that he does to abuse Kaya in that relationship and making fun of her. And then there's a particular comment, I'm pretty sure it was in the book as well, but when I heard it in the film, it was just like, oh, you deserve a punch. Which is when Chase says, I never tried to change you, other people would have. And it was just like, it feels very gaslighty, which to be fair it is, because Chase kind of tries to gaslight Kaya into thinking that he's doing her a favour kind of thing, and it's just like, no, this guy needs to be punched. Which is probably why they do bring in the court case a lot earlier in the film than they do in the book. Again, it's that compression of going from like a 14-hour audiobook at least, 12 hours even, to a 2-hour film. But they just did it so well. This was a very good, faithful adaptation, which really just drives the point home. I can't believe I'm actually saying that I prefer the movie over the book. When it comes to like the murder mystery, the film did it, because it brings you in straight away. Whereas I feel like the book, because the investigation into who killed Chase is interwoven with Kaya's childhood, it just makes it slightly harder to get there, if that makes any sense at all. I'm processing it because I literally just finished the film. But yeah, I feel like the casting was on point. Everybody in this film is absolutely brilliant. I love the casting of Mabel and Jumpin. I mean, just Michael Hyatt. I mean, anybody who's seen, to be fair, I'm sure Michael Hyatt's done quite a lot of things over the years, but for me, when I see Michael Hyatt, I do just think of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and I think she's incredible. Just her portrayal of Mabel is just like one of my favourite things in this film. I do also think that Daisy Edgar-Jones as Kaya, just, even though she wasn't quite what I had in my head when I read the book, she really does make it her own. I don't know what other people think of the adaptation, but I just thought it was really good, very faithful to the book. I was wondering if they were going to continue with the ending that was in the book. I was just thinking, are they going to do that time jump? But yeah, it's described as coming-of-age murder mystery novel for those two timelines that slowly intertwine. The first timeline describes the life adventures of a young girl named Kaya as she grows up in the marshes of North Carolina, and the second timeline follows the investigation into Chase. Like what the movie does, it does pretty much open with you finding out that Chase is dead, and then you're introduced to Kaya and watching her grow up and everything. But yeah, as you get to know Chase, and just like, you know, he's just like this privileged white boy who just wants to get his own way. So when the moment that everything very much turns in that relationship, when Kaya quite rightly punches him, and I was there when I was reading it thinking, go girl, and then when it happens in the film I was just like, go girl again, like punch him in the balls, because you shouldn't be able to use them. Yeah, I preferred the book for just watching her grow up, because the film skims over that a little bit and focuses more on the murder mystery. So yeah, I think I just like them for different reasons. As a murder mystery, I think it works better on film, whereas, because for a lot of the time when I was reading the book, I was just like, don't stop telling me about this murder mystery, I just want to get to know Kaya. So yeah, I just found that interesting as somebody who was obsessed with murder mysteries, that when reading this, well, when listening to this audiobook, I was kind of wanting to fast forward. I didn't, but I kind of was tempted to fast forward through the investigation in the beginning, because it's just like, I just want to get to know Kaya at this point. I really have no interest in what is happening with this murder mystery, because mentally I'm not there yet, because I'm still getting to know young Kaya. I just feel like the book did a very clever adaptation of it, really making the murder mystery more central to it, because in the book it feels like almost a second storyline compared to everything else that's going on in regards to her growing up and finding herself and learning to read and write with Tate. It's like the murder mystery side of it is just almost essentially part of the twist, but it is ultimately Kaya's story, whereas the movie really does focus on that murder mystery. It's still Kaya's story, but yeah, it just, if you're really, really interested in the murder mystery side of it, I recommend the film. If you really want to get to know Kaya, I recommend the book. Yeah, I think that's the way to put it. So yeah, I'm going to go get a cup of tea. So those are some of my thoughts on the book and the film of Where The Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. Now, I will say, I am very aware of the what surrounds Delia Owens, and the fact that people are comparing what happened in real life to the book is a bit bonkers to me, because they feel like very different. But I do think if Delia does know anything about what happened to the poacher, she just needs to go back to Zambia. Because for anybody who doesn't know, Delia was born in Georgia, but she went out to the Kalahari Desert and Zambia and wrote a few books about her time in Africa. But apparently they were expelled. Her and her husband were expelled from Botswana and are wanted for questioning in Zambia in relation to a murder investigation. She's no longer married to the man, but Zambia still want to question her, but there is no extradition between Zambia and the USA. So at this point, there is no way to force Delia to talk to the Zambian police officials about what she possibly knows. Because it says she's likely to be interrogated as a possible witness, co-conspirator and accessory to felony crimes in regards to the murder of a poacher. So yeah, I just want to say that I am aware of that. Comparing what happened there with the book doesn't make any sense to me. Ultimately, I feel like she just needs to grow up and go out and just talk about what she knows, and then if she did do it, she needs arresting. So but a nice ending to wrap up on. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching this video. It's been nice to do it a bit a different way, almost like a reading, watching log, essentially. So yeah, Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This front cover that I'm about to show you is a refreshed cover edition, apparently, and the book was read by Cassandra Campbell. So there you go. So now I'm off to get out a cup of tea. But yeah, so thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you like this style of video, I might do it more. Yeah. So I will see you next time in another video. Stay safe. I love you all. Goodbye.